So I'm aware that Kanye is a very controversial person to talk about because of the fact who Kanye is as a person, right? Like I think you love or you hate Kanye. You don't necessarily enjoy the content that he makes sometimes, or that you consider Kanye to be very expressive in himself. And hip hop has labeled him a genius, right? And with being labeled a genius, there are some things that you don't really take into account. And I don't think Kanye takes some of those into account. I think he Kanye is huge. I think that's undeniable that Kanye is a huge artist, right? I think he's huge in whatever brand that he decides to venture into. I think that's without any contradiction or anything. Like, Kanye is huge, right? But we have to talk about these shirts that he was wearing, because that is weirdly news, right? Like, that's weirdly some news because of Kanye and his status being Kanye. So we're going to talk about a few of these styles, and we're going to look at it from a Kanye perspective, but we're going to look at it from I don't like labeling anybody with like any any disorders or whatever, so I'm not going to label Kanye. I'm gonna just try to see if I can do like reason with reason, kind of explain Kanye's rationale, right? But I'm gonna do it in a few different ways. I think that is, we're just gonna look at Kanye's and these movements that he's doing, right, and the way that he recently is wearing these t-shirts that say "White Lives Matter," and I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm really trying to. I'm gonna be unbiased in my opinion, for the most part. I'm not bringing political parties or anything into it, but I'm generally going to talk about it. I think two things can be true at the same time, right? Two things can be true at the same time, and them still being real life issues, right? And I think I'm gonna talk about it because of Kanye's status and the way that people feel about these kind of issues, and I'm gonna try to be extremely sensitive when I talk about them. But we're gonna see where I go. But I'm gonna talk about the kind of situation. So just a heads up. But real quick, let's do our sponsors, and then I'll get right into it.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Okay, so I said I was going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it. So Kanye, or as he's formerly known as Ye, wore White Lives Matter shirt at a Balenciaga kind of event where they were showing off their newer styles, which they do every year, or every 2 years. I think the last one was pushed back a year, but every 1 or 2 years, right? So, and Kanye kind of expresses his hate, towards situations, right? And Kanye isn't a person, so I think Kanye has a manic kind of mindset. And when I say manic, I don't mean in a bad way. Just like episodes of events that he feels very close to his heart. And so that is what I think, right? And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor or a therapist. But I genuinely think that's what it is, right? So I'm going to look at this from a different standpoint, but I'm going to try to reason it. So Kanye has a song. Anyway, the whole White Lives Matter and Black Lives thing, I think they're a contradiction of each other, right? Like, I think, and I get it, it's going to sound a little critical of them all. I think, you ask me, all lives matter. I think lives are important in life, and I think I do hold some some views on, I guess, both sides, right? Like, I think there's a thing where people are like, you have to stick to a side, or you always have to pick that side. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there's always a middle ground on whatever the topic is or whatever the conversation is, right? So Kanye saying this, and him saying in one tweet he put, and one Instagram post he put, that Black Lives Matter was a scam. And I'm going to say this, and I think I know it's probably gonna sound hateful when I say it, and I know what Kanye was saying when he said both of these. Like, this is just my interpretation of what Kanye was saying, and I mean no harm to anybody in any way that I take this, right? And as I said, I'm not bringing any political parties into it at all. I'm gonna leave that information out, and if you want to look at the political parties that people stand for and stuff, you can do that, but I'm not. So what he's saying, and this has been, it's not a scam, I think, is what I think it's. So what he's saying is that Black Lives Matter was a organization, right? And an organization's whole point is to make money. A business mindset is, how can we make money off of people's emotions or actions or something that they want to do, right? And I think that's why he says it's a scam. And until some extent, I think his point is a little valid, because the one of the leaders or the co-leaders of it was going to spend $6 million on a house, on a mansion, on a house, right? And I think, and to me, if you ask me from a standpoint of a corporation, I think corporations like to make money. We like to make money all year round. And I think that's kind of my problem with, okay, so generally, if you ask me how an organization is supposed to be broken down, it's supposed to be, if we have the people getting paid to work at this organization, of course, but it also goes to the lobbyists that try to lobby people to make policies that improve or that are pro their standpoints, right? And I think that's weird, because you get a lot of people that want to talk from that standpoint, but then they use, that money goes to lobbying to make deals so that you can get your bill passed and stuff like that, and that the money is spread around. That also goes to shelters, foundations, all this other stuff, right? So him saying that it's a scam is that I'm saying that they didn't really do anything to help better Black lives, right? Like, I think that's what he's saying, and then that is also backed up by her spending $6 million on a mansion. Now, the mansion that she was spending the money on, now, she was spending corporation money or organizational money, was supposed to be for Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter funds. She did spend it on personal, for personal reasons, right? Now, I don't think the deal went through with the house she was buying. I think that deal is off the table for her. I'm not entirely sure. I can always edit this clip of it and then clarify myself, because I do hold myself accountable until the funds and stuff like that, right? But I think that's what Kanye's point is, that they didn't do anything. So a lot of people put millions of dollars in a Black Lives Matter, and nothing came from it, right? And I think besides T-shirts, marches, and those weren't the national organizations thing. They were people. They were like normal citizen people that organize these events and that make these T-shirts, and we got T-shirts from them, right? And from Kanye, he's like, well, I'm gonna do the same thing, but for the other life, because I've done T-shirts. We can make T-shirts, and because I'm not saying T-shirt makers are expensive, but if you want to make T-shirts, they're the most efficient way to do it. So I get it, but I think that's generally what Kanye's point is, that money was spent elsewhere when it should have been spent on the communities that it was meant to be spent on, and it didn't. So, and Kanye's think it's a scam because none of that money went to policies, bills, changing in the system, the laws, in Congress, and we can break that down in exclusive and policies that just didn't happen, and plans and buildings, and there's homeless people that it didn't go. What I'm saying is, the reason he says this is a scam is it's a weird thing, right? And then he wears a Black Lives Matters thing, which I think the reason why Black Lives Matters was and is so big is because there are issues. Now, don't get me wrong. There are bad apples in every field. There are bad dentists in every field. There are bad lawyers in every field. There are bad apples in every field, right? But I think so I was asked a while ago about social justice, right? Like the issue of social justice and how do you explain it, right? And I think you run into this issue especially when you talk about social justice, of how do we get it fixed, right? And that construct and that concept, or people have different concepts of it, but you run. He's doing it because at that time there were a lot of African American men, mainly. There were some African American women. I'm not gonna put that to to say that they're just bad apples. There are bad apples in every field. Cops, just some of them, right? And I think that's very. But as I said, I get what he's saying. I get that Black Lives Matters. If you ask some people, it's hey, no, it's it's completely pro-black, and if you do, it's pro-white, and I get that, right? But it's bigger than policy, and it's bigger than people, right? Like if you ask me, Black Lives Matter just mean hey, we want safer environments for people of African American descent to be able to feel better in society, where they aren't so scared of certain things, like the Tuskegee experiment, right? Like the Tuskegee experiment was bad and it created bad things like that, and I get that, right? Like and I'm not unsensitive to that, but I think we look at on the flip side of that, we look at like Genie or the Stanford prison study, right? Where they, it's not, and I get it. Like life, if you ask me, all life matters, right? And I can get behind phrases and people that say it, and I get it. It means certain things to different people. But I think that's why he's saying it's a scam, because nothing happened to improve the lives of African American people, right? And so I get what he's saying, that it's a scam, but I think he could have handled it a little bit better. But a business's or an organization's point is to make more money, right? And I hate to say it that way, but capitalism is huge in America. Like people love money. The greed of money is a weird thing that, it's a part of life. Like, hey, you need money to survive, but there are people that are greedy for that money, right? And I don't think, there's real things that could have happened. I think there's. We could have had reform for George Floyd. We could have had it for Trayvon Martin. We could have had it for Rice, Breonna Taylor. Like, we could have had reform, and I think that's what people are looking at. Wait, we want reform. We want community policing. We want this. We want laws, right? And laws, that's not a bad thing. If you want laws, we can fix those. Like, we should do that through lobbying, voting, stuff like that. Like, that can be done, right? And the White Lives Matter, I get it. Hey, there are also Caucasian people that are dealing with things that that aren't always shown in the public, but there are also things that it's a weird thing, right? And then this whole Blue Lives Matter thing, right? And look, I think that's the thing. Kanye is looking at it as these are businesses, right? Because if you ask me, I get it. Cops have not always had it easy, right? They hadn't. And I mean that jobs come. What I mean by that is that job comes with risk. It's not always easy to go, hey, I'm gonna do this as a cop. Like, there are certain things you just have to be cautious for, right? Like, that's why they give you a vest and training. Same thing in the military, right? What I'm saying is, human safety is the issue. I think they all share that issue of human safety is the issue. How can we improve humans' lives no matter their skin color? And I think that's what Kanye is saying. Now, Did he go about it wrong? We could argue yes, he did. We could argue Kanye went wrong about how he explained himself, right, in the detail, and that's why that's why, if you ask me, I say it's like manic episodes of just like upsetness or happiness, and I get it. But I think that's originally what's happened for Kanye, is that he tried to explain it, he didn't explain it well, and that's what's happening. Like, if we're saying all lives matter and safety, and we want reform for everybody to be in a safer community and a safer environment, like Iceland, I get that. Like, I can understand that, right? But I can't necessarily. It's a weird concept. If you ask me of why he wore that shirt, I think he wore it to say that all lives matter, not just Black lives. But if you ask me, all lives do matter. It's just different struggles between different communities, and I think that's what the whole white lives versus Black lives matters and all lives matter concept is. However, the whole police thing, I get that too. Police been called pigs, I get that. That's what I'm saying. In a weird way, if the concept is to make better, I get it. But Kanye has always, in a song he made with T.I., I think it was in 2018, he made a song called "Ye versus the People," right? Like, we want personal reform. We don't want something. We want something that we can see on a local level, right? Like, that's the concept of Kanye. Hey, y'all want to see something on a local level? That's not happening. But Kanye has always kind of been he's always tried to push something. He's always tried to push an idea or a concept ahead of to empower people. But however, when Kanye does it, he does it in a way that isn't very well explained. And then you get backlash from both sides, and then this argument, and it's a weird thing, right? And I'm not saying I'm always right, but I think that is what Kanye was trying to explain. It just, when he explained it, he went kind of off on a tangent, and it didn't always it didn't come out correctly. But overall, I think that's what Kanye meant. I don't know. I can't guarantee you, because I don't have any person connected that close to Kanye, but I think that's the overall assumption that I make from his messages that he were posting on Instagram. But as I say, I digress. But I don't know. Do you take his interpretation as different, or do you? I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about that kind of Kanye messaging that he did recently?